Miss A, thank you for waiting patiently, ma'am. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. This has been quite interesting. So to answer the first question
Yeah,
about the
please.
hello.
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, to answer your question about the video with Dr. Umar, there are elements of it that I absolutely agree with, and there are others that I don't. In my experience in college, the beautiful people, as we call them, those tended to be the women that everybody had. And so the guys who were marriage minded didn't want them because they had already been run through. So it was more girls who were kind of average who were actually getting the proposals because the beautiful people had been experienced by too many people already. For me, I did not, marriage was not on my radar. And I will say that I do think part of this is cultural. Having worked in higher ed, white girls go to college to get an MRS. Black women, we are not really taught that when you go to college, that that's really where the peak pool of men, if you want somebody who is quote unquote your equal, to get. So we're out there kind of all over the place where white women tend to be in their college years also looking for the guy that they're going to leave not only with their undergraduate degree, but also with a ring. So there, I do think that that is a real distinction between black women and white women in terms of being in their 20s and being marriage minded. For myself, I don't believe anybody, irrespective of race, should be thinking about being married in your 20s. Nobody, man or woman, is stable enough. I believe that the 20s should be the decade of selfishness. Go travel, get all the jobs you want, do you 24/7 for a whole decade. The person that I was in my 20s, I was not in my 30s, and I should have mentioned I am 51. Um, but I was not that person in my 30s, and I got married at 32. My husband was 41. He had never been married, never had children, and he was not a weirdo. For me, I did not want anything in a spouse that I could not offer. So things like, having children. If you had kids, you were dead on arrival with me in terms of talking. That was just not something I was going to entertain. I didn't want somebody who had a house already because I wanted to have that experience as a unit. And we were able, to do that. And for me, this whole conversation about black women don't want to build with men. It is a narrative that really stresses me because it makes me sad on so many levels. My own framing around what good spouses look like really came from my grandparents because that's who raised me initially. My grandfather was illiterate. My grandmother stayed at home. I distinctly remember on Saturdays my grandmother reading the mail to my grandfather, and she never bashed him about not being able to read. There was none of that kind of tension. That was the value that she could offer him to keep the household moving, and he worked outside of the home to provide the resources to also keep the household moving. So my framing is really around where is the balance? I don't need to bring everything to the table, and neither does he. And for me, I don't want any man to provide me a lifestyle that should he get injured or something catastrophic happens to him that I can't maintain for us. Right. So if he's able to provide it for me, I don't want there to be any shift in our lifestyle because I am not able to do that in return. So for the women who are always looking for men like that, I thank God every day that I don't have a son because I would adamantly tell my son to run and run as fast as you can from any woman who is looking for you to do that. That is not your job. I should be able to depend on my partner the same way that my partner should be able to depend on me.
Okay, thank you, Miss A. So I just want to touch on some things you said and get some feedback from you.
Sure.
So you're 51.
Yep.
I'm 26. I think you were talking about your grandmother and grandfather, right?
Yes.
Okay. Um, Miss A, it's 2024. There's social media, there's TikTok, You know, there's Black Girl Luxury on TikTok. There's Instagram. A lot of these women, Miss A, are not interested in, you know, living an average life. You know, every day they get on their phone, you know, they see what, you know, the lifestyle that a baby mama, a girlfriend, and or a wife of an athlete or entertainer is
Mhm.
portraying on the internet.
Yep.
And that is what that is the lifestyle that they aspire to have. You
Mhm.
know, unfortunately, a lot of black women aren't even looking up to black women that, you know, have their own businesses, that are grinding hard and trying to manifest a lifestyle for themselves. It's
Mhm.
all about getting a man that can provide a lifestyle for you. So
Mhm.
despite the fact that these women, you know, they're going to be stocking the shelves at Walmart and Target tonight, they don't want to date a man across the city that's stocking the shelves at Walmart and Target either. They want to date a man in corporate finance. They want to date the partner at the law firm. They want to date a petroleum engineer. They want to date a 10-year physician. You know,
Mhm.
they just think because of their existence that they're entitled to a certain caliber of man that makes a certain caliber of money, and he's supposed to provide her whatever lifestyle that she sees on the internet. So
Mhm.
all the men that are readily available for her and more
Mhm.
than suitable for her, and
Mhm.
obviously, Miss A, we're not talking about all black women, but
Yep.
like, you know, even in this audio, they're talking about younger black women. They're talking about black women in their early, I'll even say mid 20s. Shit, some women even in their early 30s have this mindset. But
Mhm.
that is what's really going on,
Yep.
Miss A. It's not a narrative. It's very much a real thing. And the one thing that I respectfully disagree with you on, I want to hear your take on it. You said you don't believe anyone should be getting married in their 20s. I don't believe men should be getting married in their 20s, but I don't what why do you think women shouldn't be getting married in their 20s? Especially if a woman is in her mid 20s or late 20s and she has a man that's in his early 30s or mid 30s pursuing her, and he meets all these and he's fit for marriage, why do you think she shouldn't get married?
If you think about, so your whole life up until you're 20, and if you've gone to college and all of that, you've been under the guidance of adults, typically your parents or whoever your caregivers have been, right? And so you get into your 20s, there's really been no span between that phase of your life and going into your 20s to really have the space to figure out who you are, right? And so if you are trying to figure out who you are in the context of being in partnership by way of marriage with someone, that's a lot. Right. And so I think, in fairness to trying to lay a foundation for a marriage that is going to stand the test of time, you have to understand who you are as a person. Every person I know, with the exception of three who got married in their 20s, are all divorced because they developed as a very different person going into their 30s and into their 40s. And so I just think, for everybody, again, man or woman, the 20s really should be the decade of selfishness. And if you think about the trajectory of life right now, people got married in their 20s because they weren't really living as long as they live now, right? So you have to really adjust for that. Right. So folks now on average are probably living into their 70s, and 80s. So it doesn't mean that you actually need to be married in your 20s when the lifespan wasn't that long. And so
Okay.
again, I think it really is more for being able to know who you are as a person, unattached to anybody else.
No, but can I ask her a question?
Yeah, yeah, go ahead. And then I'm gonna ask her a question, and then we'll move on to Humble Jerk. Go ahead, Corey.
So, do you recommend? You don't recommend marriage in 20s, but do you recommend women having multiple relationships and multiple sex partners?
Good question.
That is a good question. So, what I recommend is that women understand how to be a friend and men understand how to be a friend, because any sustainable relationship has to be rooted in good friendship. And what I see, to your point, Big Noble, is, yeah, I see everything that you've talked about on social media, people wanting this luxury lifestyle, this, that, and a third. No one really talks about how this person is my friend. Right. And so I only see you as a sexual partner, as a love interest, but there's nothing really undergirding that. as my friend, and I have some very, very, very good looking men friends. We have always been platonic friends. And I don't think that women are really taught the value of friendship in somebody you see as a romantic partner. It is critical that you have that. And so around sexual partners, I think to each his own. I do think that women don't tend to have sex unattached emotionally. And so I think there's a danger in the damage, again, that has been already spoken about, that if you choose to have multiple partners, that you do run the risk of there being more damage and you coming out on the back end of that, not really being, in a position in any way to really be a good partner to someone else. So there's always caution around that.
Okay. Yaz, I'm gonna let you say something. I just want to ask her one quick question. So Miss A, so do you think a young woman that's in her mid or late 20s that is marriage and family minded, so she knows that one day she does want to have, she does want to be married, she does want to have kids, whether she knows she just wants to have one, whether she wants to have two, whether she wants to have three, whether she wants to have a lot of kids, and just the way you women are built, biologically, would you saying that you don't think that she should get married in her 20s, if this is a marriage and family minded woman that she knows she wants to have kids, and she has the biological clock working against her, what do you have to say to that? Because as a man, as long as his Johnson is able to get hard, as long as he's not shooting blanks, he can have a kid at any age. Al Pacino just had a baby. Al Pacino in his mid 80s, he just had a baby with a 29-year-old. Like these men are having. Diddy just had a baby last year, and he's in his mid 50s. He had a baby with a 27-year-old. So the point that I'm trying to make is, like, men can have a baby whenever, as long as they're not shooting blanks. They can impregnate a woman. But a woman who's losing eggs as she gets older and things of that nature, what do you have to say to that?
So you're actually speaking to one of those. I have one child. I was 39 when I had her. Her dad was 41. It was our one and only child for the both of us. So I don't think that one's biological clock needs to be the thing that somebody works against in terms of whether or not they are getting married. Not for nothing, the community of advanced maternal age mothers is what we are known as, those who are over 35 who have kids. There's a huge community of us. One of my college friends, 49 years old, just had her first baby last month. So the notion that women have to have children in their 20s is one that I think folks need to really get a grasp on in terms of what reality says. I know for me in my 20s, I would have been an awful parent because I was too selfish. I didn't have the resources. I hear all these conversations, or I see all these posts on TikTok around the 50-year-olds, wanting their life back because they had their kids in their 20s. I don't have that struggle. I'm not growing up with my daughter. I'm very solidly grounded. We have great resources. We can have fun because I have more to offer her than my own struggle around trying to figure out how I'm going to provide for her. Right? So if one just keeps their body healthy, you can have children when you want them. And I'm not saying, to put it off. What I am saying is that you should not be saying, oh, I have to have a baby by X date. Because that's not, I don't think that that's good rationale.
Okay. Thank you, Miss A. Hey, Yaz, did you want to say something before we move on to Humble Jerk?
Yeah, quickly. I think Miss A must have been talking about friendships to do with male and females, right? Now, I don't believe in male friendships or females having male friendships or males having female friendships. Like, for me, that's a no-go. I think that's... Sorry, guys, I'm really ill. But I think that's a red flag. Why must you have the opposite gender friend? What is the reason? What is the reason for you to have the opposite gender friend? It to me is very confusing. If someone could tell me what an opposite gender friend can provide me that my friends could not provide me, or my brother, or my father.
What's confusing about that?
Well, why do I need to have a male friend?
One, I didn't say that you needed to have a male friend. What I
Oh, okay.
said is that somebody you are looking to as a romantic partner, you need to
Ah,
have a
I got you.
friendship with them.
Okay, I
That's
got
what I
you.
said.
Okay, I got you.
And there's nothing wrong with having just male friends who you have no interest in. That's healthy too.
Okay. Thank you, Miss. Thank you, Miss A. I appreciate you. Could you please go on mute for me? I appreciate you adding your 2 cents, okay?
Sure.